Welcome to the Creativity, Thinking, and Education Podcast with your host, Patricia Rose Upsack. Today we will be talking to the remarkable Denise Linn, and this podcast is a part of two. This is the first part, and the second part will be next week. Denise Linn is a powerful teacher, workshop leader, and author, and when she was a teenager, she had a traumatic near-death experience. In this death experience, she entered a realm where she experienced a profound unity with all things. Her experience was so meaningful that when she recovered her health, she started a quest to discover more about the hidden dimensions of her life. And it was interesting because when you talk to her, you find out that the doctors told her that she wouldn't live beyond her 20s, she'd never have children, and that she would always be disabled very deeply because she was shot 7 times. It was a horrible experience for her. But she did recover her health, and she went on a quest to discover more about the hidden dimensions of life. Her journey led her to the Native American tribal traditions, looking for her own Cherokee tribe and finding out interesting information about that. She spent time with the Maoris in New Zealand and the aborigines in Australia. She even spent time with the Zulu tribe, and she traveled with the Hawaiian. She traveled to Hawaii, and she trained with a Hawaiian kahuna and learned their techniques. She also trained in Reiki with the famous Takata and organized the first Reiki courses for Westerners in Hawaii with Takata. She also trained in shiatsu, lived in a Zen Buddhist monastery for several years, and she has dyslexia, which I'm, of course, very interested in. And she tells us how difficult it was. She's in her 60s, and how hard it was when she was in school, because people really didn't understand dyslexia back then at all. And some people don't now, but they really didn't understand it then. And then she talks about how she dealt with the challenges in college and how she dealt with the challenges and how she navigated everything also as an author. She is brilliant, and she's funny, and she's interesting, and she has such wisdom, and I think you're going to enjoy this.
She is also the founder of the International Institute of Soul Coaching. Welcome.
Thank you. As I said, I'm just so happy to have this time with you.
It's so exciting. So I thought we would sort of just jump right in. And I will be, just so that the people listening understand, I will ask you to give your website out a couple of times, just so that people, because your website's wonderful, and it gives people an opportunity to find out about your online courses, your courses in person, your cruises, and everything like that. So right off the bat, would you tell us your website?
I will, and it's Denise Linn, that's LINN.com. There's also some free stuff that's really cool on the website. There is a healing portal, and there are healers all over the world who send energy into that portal. And if you need healing, you just open it up, you turn on the sound, and you just sit in front of your computer and just ask to receive. And you think, wow, that's just a computer.
Oh, that sounds wonderful.
But it's cyberspace, can be sacred space. I found it really works. And if you're a healer and you would like to make a contribution, just open it up and send energy into it, knowing that there are people around the world who are receiving energy. It is a portal for healing, and it really works, and I'm so excited about that. And it's free. And then there's also chakra portals, and so there's explanations. If this particular thing is out of balance in your life, use this one. And each one you can open for each of the chakras, and I work specifically with a designer and to get the exact photo, the exact color, the exact design, and also we have sound music for each of the chakras that align with that chakra. So if you need to be grounded, open up that first chakra portal and just inhale the color, listen to the sound, and focus on that part of your body, and that will activate your first chakra, balance it, and also help you be more grounded. So
Would you mind going through the chakras and telling everybody, a little bit about it, just really fast?
Okay. Well, let's say, for example, you need grounding, or maybe you have some concerns with blood, with circulation, and you'd think the heart, well, that would be up in the heart chakra, but also the blood circulation part of it has to do with that first chakra. It's red, and for someone who doesn't know about chakras, these are energy centers in the body. So, but even if you don't know anything about chakras, you open them up and you can read. There's a whole list of, these are the, say you're in a fearful state and you just, you want to step forward, you want to make a change, maybe you want to leave that job and you're scared. Well, then you might want to open up that first chakra portal and just inhale the color. Visualize, imagine that color of red is surging through your body. And at the same time, and listen to the sound, and it's kind of a deep well, it's a first chakra sound.
Right, exactly. You'll have to go to your website to hear the sound.
And, I think it's going to take us our whole time together to go through all these chakras. But here's, if there's any, because it's not just one thing for each chakra. There is a multitude of areas of life, both emotional and physical, that every chakra addresses. And so you can just open each one up and go, well, I am, my heart has felt pretty closed off to others. So then you might want to open that heart chakra one and, and inhale that beautiful kind of green color to just ignite, the green, like you're on the forest green or fresh grass green, that it's that place where it's activating that. So you open that chakra, or maybe you want to connect to those higher states. So you open up the crown chakra and you inhale that kind of lavender violet color, and you at the same time know that you are opening up to higher wisdom, higher energy, to spirit above. So whatever, but each one has a multitude of things that it does.
Well, that's wonderful. That really is.
So anyway,
and that's
there's other
free
stuff
on your
the
website.
Oh, and the other thing is, I don't have it in yet, but what I'm going to do is I have a book coming out about native practices with all the cultures I've spent time in. So I'm going to put a section where I have lots of information, like, how do you make a dream catcher? How do you use fans or feathers for space clearing? I'm going to have lots of videos and how-tos. How do you make a drum? How do you use a drum? How do you call the little people, the fairies? So lots of videos and information that anyone can have, because it's one of the miracles of modern technology is that we can share wisdom and information, and it's free. And I love that I love the fact the internet's free, and I love that people so willingly share so much on the internet.
I do too. Yeah, I think that's. Your website sounds so exciting. When we get done, I'm going to go on it and clear all my chakras. Okay, let's fix me here. Well, since you already just mentioned it, I have so much I want to ask you, but could you tell us about, well, you have a choice. Which would you like to talk about first? Don't you like that you have choices? You get to pick. I was fascinated by your Alaskan cruise that you took this summer. If I had the time and the money, I would have been there in a heartbeat. And I just wondered if you could tell us either about your cruise first or about your new book coming out first.
Well,
because clearly I want to talk about both of them.
Since you asked about the cruise, this was an Alaskan cruise that was organized by someone who really wanted to focus on shamanic practices. So she invited shamans, medicine women, medicine men from literally around the world to be teachers on this cruise. And that was, I am not a cruise person, I have to say. I'm just not. But I was so fascinated by the caliber of the people that were there. Grandmother Elizabeth, who's a Mayan elder, amazing. Malku, and she's, from Guatemala. I should remember that. Malku, who's from Peru, who does, ceremonies, a shaman from Peru. Just amazing, remarkable people were there. And I love when people of various cultures share their traditions. And what I really love is that so many of the traditions have a commonality, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. So that was great.
Okay.
But when I think about all the experiences I had, and also we got off the ship and we met with some of the native people from Alaska, and did ceremony with them, and that was just wonderful. And eagles were flying overhead, and it was just kind
of. Now, did I see something about it was like the Thunderbird tribe or something like that? Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, it does. And there were, in native cultures around the world, people are divided into clans. And so there were some of the Raven clan, some of the Thunderbird clan, some of the, I think, the Beaver clan. There were of the Tlingit people, there were representatives from the different clans. So,
I see. Okay.
So, and they were addressing each other by their clans, and half of it was in their native language, and half of it was in English, and and I presented the elder with a drum, which gave me a lot of joy, and he presented me with an eagle feather, which was a big honor because eagles are so important to them. So that was great. And I would do that trip again in a heartbeat if they ever do it again. But the highlight, and you might think it's strange, but the highlight was there's this wonderful woman named Nikki Scully. And Nikki Scully has trained for, decades. I think she's taken like 60 trips to Egypt or something with the ancient mysteries of Egypt. And so she was on the journey, and she was leading a ceremony. And so the part of the ceremony is she talks about how she's going to, we're going to share in water. And I see the kind of funky plastic water bottle, and I'm thinking, oh no, we're all going to drink out of the same water bottle. And I'm like, God, don't let me get sick, because when I was in Thailand, there was this sacred ceremony with water, sacred waters gathered from around the world, and we all drank out of the same. We all got really sick. Really sick. Everyone who shared that bottle. So I'm seeing that plastic bottle there in the front of the room, like, oh no, God, please! I know I have to drink out of it, or do I pretend? Because I have this memory. Well, she picks up a tray, and she says, well, here's all the water. Well, to me, the tray looks empty. But part of ceremony is giving form to the formless. And I'm like, oh, I get it. It's spirit water. So as she passes the tray, we all reach into this, empty tray, but of course it's not empty because it's got cups of spirit water in it. And we pick it up. And then evidently she had said sip. I didn't hear sip, but I drank all of my spirit water. So then the next thing she tells us to take another sip, and I'm like turning red because, oh my God, I drank all my water. And so she goes, what's going on, Denise? And I'm like, I'm so sorry, I drank all my water. And everybody starts laughing. And so she comes over with her spirit vase, which no one can see, but it's there, gives me more water. And from this point, the whole ceremony, we laughed and laughed. And the reason I'm telling you this is there's power in ceremonies. Ceremonies work. They absolutely work. They've been done since the beginning of humankind for the simple reason they work. They give form to the formless. They absolutely call spirit. And the energy, and Nikki, who's been doing ceremonies for, decade upon decade, said it was some of the highest energy she'd experienced, and it was simply because there was joy. And so many times when people do ceremonies, they think rituals, it has to be serious. And it's good to be focused. We were talking personally about focus. It's good to be focused. It's good to have a sense of dedication and not be chaotic. But also, it's great to have a sense of joy. And it was one of the most beautiful ceremonies I've attended because of the joy. It was a focused joy. And
I love that, focused joy.
Wow. We all walked away feeling light and bright, which you should after a ceremony. You shouldn't walk away feeling like, okay, that was a good ceremony. It should be, damn, that was good. Damn, my life is better now.
Exactly. I think that's perfect.
And here's what's funny about that. Okay, so I got really excited because he had one man there who was like, he's into aliens, and he says, okay, we're going to, every night we're going to go out on the top of the ship, and we're going to look for aliens. Now, doesn't this sound wonderful? Like an alien expert, and you're going to go out and you're going to see aliens? Like, it sounds great, doesn't it? It's Alaska at the solstice. There's not much nighttime.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, because when I went the first time to Alaska, it was right after the solstice, and the sun didn't go quote unquote down until 1:00 in the morning, and it was back up at 4. I'm like, I'm not getting a lot of sleep because I really am attuned to like sunlight, and I'm like, Aw, so you didn't see any aliens, huh?
We didn't see any aliens. I was thinking, oh my God, that sounds so cool. Go up on top of the ship and we're going to see, because he's attuned, he can call them down or something. And it's like, yeah, not the best time to look for aliens. Anyway, it was a great cruise.
Oh, I'm so glad. Well, it sounded wonderful. It really did. And I was like, oh. So hopefully they will do it again and you will go and then I'll get to go too, because that just sounded amazing. So now you're always working on new projects. I mean, you are so creative, and it's interesting because that's one of the reasons. Well, there are a couple of reasons that you just stood out as the perfect person to have for this telesummit, because it's called Creativity, Thinking, and Education, and you are the epitome of creativity. I mean, truly, you have just been such an amazing creator. Long before I met you, and I've known you a really long time.
Really?
Like 25, 30 years? I mean, it's been a long time.
Probably 30 years.
Yeah, and but the other part of it is I love the way you think. I mean, it's like you really have you're razor sharp especially when I watch you work. I mean we giggle and we laugh and we have fun, but I also watch that you make sure that you bring people back to the whole point of what you're trying to do. You're an amazing teacher, and I love that. But the other part that's really just extraordinary, and that I want people, because and I've talked to every person in the telesummit about, something, because one of the things I used to go to the book expo all the time, and one of the things that really surprised me was that at least 65-70% of the people there that had their books that they were working on selling, or they had just written a book or whatever, were teachers at some point in their life. And, when I went. And if they weren't, the other part of it that really surprised me that I didn't realize was that a good 20 to 25% of those people who were teachers, who are now writers, also had learning disabilities of some form.
Oh, that's interesting.
And I went, and so of course, what did I do for 23 years of my life? I taught I adored my students. I taught kids that had learning disabilities at the high school level. And so one of the things that I really saw about them that was so fascinating was they absolutely refused to be put in a box. I mean, they just wouldn't do it, and so that's why someone would say, get them to UPSAC because they wouldn't sit there and have somebody say, just sit still and be quiet. When they didn't understand something or they needed to do something, they made sure the people in the classroom knew that. I think I was very lucky in that the sense the school I was in, because I was trying very hard to educate the teachers. I mean, one of the first things that I said to them when I first got there, because back then it was a brand new thing. I designed the program at Fairview High School in Boulder, and I said to these high school teachers who were very, very, very good at their subject matter. I mean, they were very educated people. And I said to them at the faculty meeting when they were trying to figure out who's this woman and she's starting what kind of program, and I said, look, I know all of you are very good at teaching your subjects. What I'm asking you to do is to learn how to teach kids. And it's a very different process than just teaching a subject. You have to learn learning styles. You have to learn where they're strong and when they're not, and allow them to show you that they have a lot of talents that you don't even realize that they have. And so I was very lucky because my program was very successful and the kids were wonderful and the teachers really learned the teachers even learned what their styles were. And so I wondered if you wanted to tell anybody about some of the interesting processes that you go through when you're writing a book.
Okay.
If you want. Such a can of worms, huh?
Well, I don't consider myself a writer, and I don't actually think I'm particularly good at writing, and in fact...
and I love your books. I mean, I do. Because they just speak to people so wonderfully.
The way people say, well, who's your agent? I don't have an agent. They want to get my same agent since, my books have done well over the years and I've had some bestsellers. But someone came, and a publisher came, and I was teaching a lot of seminars, and he asked me to write a book. And And I don't know how I did it. I think the last week I didn't even change my clothes because he said you got a month to write it. And also, he said we don't have time to format it, so you have to format it too. In those days, if you formatted it, this is like 30 years ago, you changed one word, it changed the formatting for the whole thing. So, and that book is actually still in print. But it did really, really well at the time. It was a book on dreams. And
oh yeah, I love that. You redid it, but I love that book. It's really good.
Yeah, well, after it came out, then I went back and, I updated it. But so then, another publisher said, would you write a book? So that's kind of how I got into writing. And I'm dyslexic, so writing is really hard for me. It's hard to stay focused. It's just hard. So I thought, here I'm writing these books, but I should be a writer. So I got this big, thick tome called The Writer's Handbook. Have you ever seen that?
I have.
It's for professional writers. So and at this point I was with Random House, and so I'm reading this book, and it said, a true writer just writes because they love to write. And I'm like, I don't love to write. I think it's hard, really hard. I can't spell straight. It's really hard. And so the more I read it, the more I realized I wasn't a writer. And I called my editor, and a beautiful woman named Judith Kendra, and I said, I'm not a writer. And she goes, Denise, your books are selling. Just throw that writer's handbook away and just keep writing. So then, I wrote some more, and they did well. And then I thought, but I really should, since this is what I'm doing in life, I should train so I could do it well, because basically my writing training came from, high school in Ohio, a little tiny farming community. So twice I tried to sign up for writers' workshops, and both times I flunked out of the workshops, like right in the beginning. I just flunked out. I was so bad. But then sometimes I think you just have to keep going. And so I just kept going.
Well,
and the thing that I do have is I've got great information, and I always think this is information everybody knows. And it turns out it's not.
No, it's not.
So
you're right. It's not. No.
So
you absolutely know a lot of things that other people don't know. And there are people who do know what you know, and this is something I probably, like I said, we've known each other for years.
Yes.
That I've never said to you. There are other people that know what you know, but you have a way of reaching people and giving them access to material so that they understand it. And I think that that's a huge gift.
And they can use it in their life.
Exactly.
And the great thing about my books is they're really easy to read. Because of being dyslexic, I have never read a mind, body, spirit book in my life ever. Because reading is really hard for me. So I try to make it for somebody like me who, I just like to make it really, I don't want to say idiot-proof because that doesn't speak much of my readers, but something that's for somebody like me, something that it's easy. I remember when that first book came out, and someone came up to me and said, "Oh, I read your book cover to cover, and I loved it." And I went into shock. I said, "You did?" Because I couldn't believe that anybody would read. Because they're how-to books. Read a how-to book cover to cover.
Oh, your Sacred Space book is phenomenal. I mean, and you probably don't realize that it's phenomenal, but it is just packed full of information. And a lot of times if I'm trying to find something and I can't find it in any of the other books, I will go into I have everyone laughs because I call it the library, but it's in the family room, right? But I go down and I pull off my Sacred Space book, and invariably it's in there. It's like, I knew that was in here.
When I wrote that book, I thought everybody knows this information. And in fact, that was the book that I was on the Oprah show a few times for. And I even tried, once I wrote it, then I remember when I was talking to a woman named Linda Gray with Random House, who at the time was kind of very well-known editor, and I said, "Are you sure you guys want to publish this? I'm not sure it's that good." And she goes, "Oh, we think it'll sell." I'm like, "Yeah, but you've got to make sure, because I just don't think it's that good of a book." Because I was so insecure with my writing skills. And it turned out that was a huge bestseller, and it still continues to do well to this day. So, anyway.
It's an amazing book. Did you have trouble in school?
I did. And the way I didn't get bad grades, though, because in those days you could do extra credit projects. You talk about the creative spirit. I don't think they have cut back so much on the arts and on, music and art and the creative part of the being in schools. And it just, don't even get me started.
But and it's heartbreaking. I know.
It is, and really you should be teaching people to open that creativity, because that's what will see you into the future, not whether you can memorize what date that, Napoleon crossed some river. I mean, that's ridiculous. But, but I did so many special projects, art projects, and you got credit. So I was able to get my grade point up by my lots and lots of special projects.
Yeah, that's very good. Well, and the thing is, though, is that actually your creativity you found at a young age, your creativity of doing things helped you in life.
It did, because I had such a hard time reading and writing that so I thank God they accepted special credit, because otherwise I probably would have flunked out of college. I mean, of high school. Yeah, who knows about college? But actually, in college, I did this. They had one program where you could create your own major. And then my big project that I did, and I look back at this project now, and I think, what I did in this project has really set the stage and for everything I've done in life since. And there's a book called The Tibetan Book of the Dead. And,
I have that. I love it.
And basically it's this, like in Tibet, when someone dies, there's these certain bardo states, they're called, levels that you go through as you go to the light. And in Tibet, they want you to be careful that you can maneuver through these states so you can get to the light and you don't get stuck.
Uh-huh.
So I'm 65, and this was like, when I was 19, I think. So this is a long time ago. And I don't even know when the Tibetan Book of the Dead came out, but it was a long time ago.
It was a long time ago, yeah.
So I got a bunch of those mandalas, and I took slides of them. And then I found some music of Tibetan monks chanting. And I created this experience where people from the university would come in and they would sit in this, because I got one of the lecture halls, would sit in this darkened room, and it was absolutely dark, and they had to sit there. And then slowly the first slide would go up, and then I narrated. I said, you are now, I talked about them dying and going into the first bardo state as that mandala came up, and then there was the sound of the chanting underneath it. And I took people through an experience of dying through transitioning through these bardo states. And I did, I passed with flying colors. But
it sounds wonderful.
It was a creative experience where it changed people, like this idea of, you're not your body, and letting go of the body and stepping into the light. And the main way I teach is with guided meditations.
Right.
And with music and sound, and this idea that through those inner realms you can step into other dimensions. You can access wisdom you can't access consciously. So thank God the university let me do that.
Thank you for joining me here at Creativity, Thinking, and Education Podcast. Next week, we will listen to the rest of Denise's amazing conversations, packed full of so much information and so much wisdom. Please visit us at happyteachershappystudents.com. And if you find value in this podcast and the message that we are trying to spread, then click the subscribe button and give my show a review, hopefully a good review. I am so excited to be able to share the timeless awareness of all the amazing guests that I've had just recently, and also many of them that are coming up soon. So thank you, and I will see you next Tuesday.